and they said, you need to go, you need to do the show. And I was like, no, I'm a behind the scenes person. I don't go on the microphone. And they said, no, you are today because it's, drive time, 5:00. You have to be on the air. And so I went to the studio. I put the cans on, as they say in the industry, the headphones, and pulled the mic. And when the on-air light went on, it changed my life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the What the Nell podcast with yours truly, Nell Tice. My guest today is super exciting. I'm trying to deviate from I'm super excited for my guest today. So, but I say that every single time. But my guest today has some real incredible value to bring to you guys. And I know it's something that a lot of you probably struggle with, including myself. We're going to be talking a lot about imposter syndrome today, but first I'd like to introduce her. She is Christine Blosdale. Did I say that properly?
Yes, you did.
Oh, gosh, thank you. Okay. She is the expert authority coach. She has over 25 years of experience in personal branding, magnetic marketing, and multimedia. She's helped entrepreneurs, coaches, authors, and thought leaders step into their brilliance and become the go-to authority in their field. She's a 5-time #1 best-selling author, my goodness, and a former content creator for powerhouses like America Online and Microsoft. You may have heard of those. Mm-hmm. But what truly fuels her is helping people like you rise, shine, and get seen. Her coaching style is simple, easy, and fun, but most importantly, effective. And she will show you exactly how to elevate your visibility, build unstoppable confidence, and position yourself as the expert authority your audience is craving. Mm-hmm. And I want to know more. Yes, amen to that. I want to know more about this social media branding survival guide so good that your ex is going to want to follow you. But before we get into that, welcome, Christine, to the What the Nell podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you were referring to my latest book, The Social Media and Branding Survival Guide, and everything I write, everything I create has to have a bit of humor in it. Of course. So not to encourage stalking or anything like this, but the subtitle is Digital Marketing So Irresistible Even Your Ex Will Want to Follow You. And on the cover, if you noticed, I crossed out the X. Like,
ooh,
like that was a little dig to the X's, but yeah, no, it was really a fun book to write, and I'm super excited that it's out now. I've got to do the audiobook version. I've done all the other versions, but I want to get the audiobook version out as soon as I can.
Well, if you need help with that, I've got a connection for you. So just
fantastic.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind for you. But America Online, Microsoft, these are a couple of the world's largest companies. You've had a really dynamic career. So what led you or what inspired you to become the expert authority coach?
It's not a title that I take lightly. And I've worked, like you had mentioned earlier, about 25 years in media and marketing and all of that good stuff. And it started really a long time ago. And I'll even say that, as a child, my mother used to, because she was a single parent, and she would have to work very late at night. And so she would be getting dressed and she would ask my opinion about what she was wearing. Right. And she would say, what do you think about these boots? Or what do you think about this? She would wear wigs because she worked in a bar. And she didn't want her hair to smell like smoke. It was back in the day.
Smart.
So she would ask me, and so from a really young age, I was encouraged to give my opinion, and that my opinion mattered. Right.
Oh.
And it was a very big responsibility for a 5-year-old person to go, yeah, no, those boots don't match that outfit. Change it. And she would. So I think, that helped me along the way. And then I, of course, I, went to school, did the whole thing, thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I ended up being a teacher as a coach. But I was going to be a high school teacher. And then I graduated and I found out how much they paid teachers and what they had to do. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of was trying to find myself, and I did a bit of personal fitness coaching and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
because it was back in the day when it was all hip and very cool to
It was
do
the
that.
coolest thing.
It was cool, and eventually I started doing some writing, just mostly creative writing, and I started off doing like music reviews and movie reviews. I would give my honest opinion of movies and things like that. And it was written. I was writing for a small magazine in West Hollywood, California, and there was an opportunity to start working for America Online. They were looking for entertainment writers to have a column, and because that's what America Online was back in the day, and it was the only thing. It was the only thing we had was America Online.
Yeah.
And so I got this great opportunity, and I actually wrote through a cartoon character. I didn't write through Christine Blosdale. I wrote through this cartoon character called Beatbox Betty. And to this
Ooh, I love
day,
that.
I still, now this was like a long time ago, but to this day, I still get people that'll inbox me and go, "Are you Beatbox Betty?" Like, I read your column all the time, and so I wrote an entertainment column, and I went to because AOL was so big back then, I got to go to all the premieres and press junkets and things like that, and screenings, and so I was brutally honest because this cartoon character was, very head of hopper, very vampy, campy, funny. She always had a martini in her hand, so she was a little sloshed. The skill set came about, my opinion mattering. Is that a word?
Matter? Oh, yeah. Well, if it's not, it is now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We just coined it. It's going to be in the dictionary. But it was, there where I actually got to hone in the craft of writing and communicating to an audience that was very, very wide. Because I asked my editor, I said, "So who's my audience? What's my target?" And he said, "Christine, this is America Online, and your audience is anywhere from 8 years old to 80.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, okay." That's a simple task to do. But this was way before those Shrek movies came out. But basically, I communicated and I wrote columns that were sort of Shrek-like. In other words, people of all ages could get something out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I love the Shrek movies, probably for that reason.
Well, because it's appealing to so many people. And so that's how I started. And then 9/11 happened, and when 9/11 happened, it was one of those moments. I don't know, Nell, if you've had those moments where you stop and you go, "What am I doing?" Right? I was like, does anybody really care about who Angelina Jolie is dating, or Drew Barrymore, what she's wearing? I just felt like it was so shallow and not important when 9/11 happened. And I remember when it happened, shortly after that, I think it was like a day or two after. It was so short, and we were in a press junket with Drew Barrymore, and I forget the movie, but she was there, and she was visibly upset, and she was starting to well up with tears as journalists were asking her questions. And we were like, what's happening? What are you feeling, Drew? And she said the same thing. She said, "I just feel so silly here, sitting here talking about a movie when so much is going on." And I got up and gave her a hug. I just went over and gave her a hug because I could feel how uncomfortable she felt. She was obligated, of course,
Sure.
multi-million-dollar studio pick. And so they're like, "You're going to do the interviews." So that really helped me, I think, along the way. And then AOL, they got rid of a lot of their original creators and content writers and morphed into AOL Time Warner. And then I went over to MSN, which is Microsoft. MSN was the AOL, the competition. So I wrote for them for a while under the same, Beatbox Betty character. But it was still, I was like, this is just, I don't think this is really important.
Yeah.
And then I found a radio station in Los Angeles that was so unique, and it wasn't the mainstream media. It wasn't scary. It was unique because it was people's opinions about what they thought was going on. And so I walked in there one day and I just said, "I want to thank everybody I came with gratefulness and gratitude in my heart." And because there was that pull, you know, not to get too woo-woo on you, but there's that pull that says you need to do this. And I walked in and I just thanked everybody I could. And they said, you know, so what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a cartoon character that writes about Hollywood stuff. And they said, well, you should volunteer here. And that volunteer thing that I did for a couple weeks turned into an opening and a job and a producership. And then I got that moment where they said the star, you know, the host of the show cannot go on because they're whatever, sick or broke a leg or something. And they said, you need to go, you need to do the show. And I was like, no, I'm behind the scenes person. I don't go on the microphone. And they said, no, you are today because it's, you know, drive time, 5:00. You have to be on the air. And so I went to the studio. I put the cans on, as they say in the industry, the headphones, and pulled the mic. And when the on-air light went on, it changed my life. It just, I can't even express the feeling that I had and how I felt I was able to connect with the audience without seeing them, without hearing from them, but just speaking from my heart. And the audience, the people, you know, stuck in their cars in traffic in LA.
Yeah.
That resonance, that feedback that you get.
Yeah.
Just like when you do a podcast, you know, you don't know who's listening to you, but you can feel. And every now and then you get those comments sent to you, and it's such a good feeling. So that's how I started. And
wow, that's quite
it's a long
the story.
It's a long story, but you could, you know, shorten it in your editing process if you wish. No.
I mean, I think that, you know, the goal here at the What the Nell podcast is to share people's stories. And I don't care how long it takes, because every part of a story is what makes you who you are.
Yes.
And without, you know, a small part of that, you know, I'm listening to your story. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's like that movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where Andy is working at a fashion magazine and she's like, I want to write about real topics. And towards the end of the movie, she finally gets her opportunity and she wants to go and do that. And, you know, there's a lot of people that resonate with, you know, you and your story, like you said, even though you don't know and you don't know who's listening. And I got to tell you, you know, my husband and I have been doing live radio now for 2-3 years now. Wow. And we kind of had a similar thing where we turned the mic on the first time and it was like, bam, like flowed like natural. And it is just life-changing. And any time you have an opportunity to change even just one person's life, you don't even know who it is, like that's worth it.
Yes. And you know, with podcasting and radio, audio is an intimate art form. Why I loved you know, being in radio, and I was 20 years at that radio station. Why I loved it so much is that people they could only feel he could hear my voice and they could feel my intention. They would not be able to judge me based on my haircut or my nose ring or the tattoos that I have. They, you know, or they wouldn't say, why is she wearing that? They could only feel me and hear me. And it's a very, very powerful medium. That's why I say people who have an important message to share, one of the things I tell my clients all the time is you need to create a podcast. It's a wonderful platform to share your wisdom and inspiration with the world. So, and some are like, okay, that sounds very scary. And I go, it's not as scary as you think. It's okay. I'll walk you through it. Yeah.
Well, that's a really good segue into today's topic about imposter syndrome, because I can't help but believe that maybe a lot of your clients say, yeah, that's scary, because they're dealing with imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So let's take us back to a moment where you experienced imposter syndrome personally.
Oh, just that, you know, that first opportunity to go on air. I was like, you know, no, it's not me. I work behind the scenes. You know, who am I? That's the thing. That's the question. Who am I to get on the microphone and tell people, you know, to communicate with them and strike up a conversation with myself, because I was in the studio by myself, right? So you're talking to yourself, basically. unless you open up the phone lines, and that's always a fun journey.
Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah. And what I would do, here's a tip. So what I would do is when I knew I had to open up the phone lines because there was no guest or the guest like bailed. So I would put a protective bubble around me and the studio and the station.
Okay.
And I would say the only people that are going to be able to get through are not going to be the complainers or the haters. It's going to be the people that have something really important to say.
I love that.
Right? And so
I love that.
for the most part, it worked. A couple people got through.
So, this podcast, and we talk about entrepreneurs experiencing this all the time, but I think in particular it tends to be high achievers. Would you agree that are experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome? And if you do, I mean, why do you think that is? That particularly high performers or high achievers, however you want to look at it, why do you think that is that they experience this so often?
It's it's really across the board. There's so many people that experience it, right? Because there are a lot of times things that happen to us when we're kids. People saying, a parent saying something, or a kid on the school playground saying something, can affect us, and can basically those stories. Even if we have degrees up the wazoo and we've accomplished a lot, those stories can still play in our head. And it's just it's almost like a biofeedback loop that will play in your head when you're asked to step into something greater than what you expected. Let's say, right? A lot of times that happens, and a lot of times I'll talk to my clients and I'll say, I see that we need to get you to write a book about your experience or about your skill set and your expertise. And they'll say, again, well, who am I to write a book? I don't have that kind of, willpower or, this, that, and the other. And I say, here's the thing. With imposter syndrome, one way to get over it is to realize that it's not about you. And now when you're talking to somebody who's an entrepreneur or a coach, and they're like, what do you mean it's not about me? I need to portray myself as the successful person, business person, who's got it all together. And I said, first of all, the days of perfectionism are gone. We see the world of Hollywood and the music industry, and all that shimmers and shines is not gold. And right now, in humanity's world, we are craving authenticity, and we're craving relatability and a connection, because so much around us is disconnecting, right? We look around and we go, I don't recognize this world. I don't recognize some of the stuff that's happening in America. I'm here in Australia, but some of the things that are happening in America, it's like, that's not my country. That's not the place that I felt safe and so at home. So we feel disconnected, and that if you're able to tap into that connection, usually it's by being authentic and not perfect, then you're way ahead of the game. So what I do with my clients who are really suffering from imposter syndrome really badly, and I see that they got such great stuff to share with the world, and they are an expert authority in their field, they just don't know it yet, or they doubt themselves. I will say, it's not about you. It's about the audience, your clients, the potential clients that you want to serve. So who are you doing this for? If you're doing it just for yourself, it's going to be a hard road. If you're doing what you say you want to do for others, to help others become, if you're a fitness coach, to help others feel better in their body, or if you're a business coach, to help others make more money or feel more passionate about what they're doing, then it's about them and it's not about you.
Yeah. Oh.
And you need to show up for those people, because if you stay in your basement and you say, woe is me, who am I am nothing, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too old, I'm too fat, well, then those people are not going to get the message. They're not going to get your wisdom. And that's a shame. So I tell people to get out of the way. Knock it off. No.
You pretty much just described a recent day that I had. So thank you for calling me out on that.
It's okay.
I do appreciate that. No, everything you're saying is so incredibly true and valuable, and people can really, really resonate with, I was able to resonate with what you just said because I just did it.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud of it, but there are those times, in our lives when we just need that extra push, and to have somebody like you in their corner is awesome. So
it happens to all of us now. It happens to the people that you think, whoever your idols are or whoever you admire, it happens to them. It's not something that is isolated. And it's also something I think that's kind of built into our DNA. I believe in reincarnation. I believe I've been here many times, but also built into our DNA or into our brain is this fear of being kicked out of the tribe, right? Being kicked out of the cave. Because if we're kicked out of the cave, dinosaurs are going to eat us, right? We're not going to survive. So we need to play along, and we need to play nice. And if they need somebody to, cook the tiger meat, whatever, I don't know, whatever cave people did. So you assimilate. Yeah. And you fit in. You try to fit in because you don't want to be kicked out of the cave. That is something that is hardwired into our brains. And our thing is, we need to realize that we have much more power than we've ever believed. We are so powerful. When we claim that power, then amazing things can happen.
Watch out.
That's right. That's right.
So what is one daily habit that someone can start today to help build their confidence and start getting over that imposter syndrome?
Well, it depends on what field they're in or what they want to accomplish. I have some clients who really, they're like, I want to create my own podcast, but I hate my voice. I don't like to hear myself talk. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I have exercises, for them. I had one client who was an amazing performance artist, and she just did not want to be on video and did not want to do those social media videos that I tell all my clients you need to do, right? Video is so important because people can see your eyes and they get the gist of who you are, as opposed to just copy text on a website or something like that.
Next best thing to being in person.
It's the next best thing. So so those folks and this particular client, I remember she was a performance artist, so I was like, I was confused. I was like, wait a second, you can go on stage and you have no problem, but being in front of a camera or on your computer recording, it was very hard for her. And again, it was because that imposter syndrome was creeping up. And she was very worried and concerned about, how she looked, how she came across, what will people think? Sure. And I, again, brought her back to, why are you doing this? Who are you doing this for? Because if you want to create a podcast and a vodcast, the video version of that, and you want to, you say that you want to inspire young people to be creative and to do those performance art things and sing and play music, you want to inspire young people, then I said, stop looking at yourself, stop analyzing yourself and criticizing yourself, and think about those children and kids that are waiting for you to show up. And it took a little while because it's so ingrained in us. But it took a little while, and after a while, she said, "You're right. I need to do this for them."
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. It is. I feel like a lot of times when you can really get back to your why, yes. That's truly like the root of but getting back there can be easier said than done. I just, like I said, I experienced that this week. And even with the podcast, I'm like, I have, so many episodes and I feel like nobody's listening and, the whole 9 yards. So I'm sure you still probably even yourself experience that from time to time.
You know what? I do. And from time to time you go, I'm putting out this content and I only got so many likes or so many comments, or I'm doing this podcast. I did my long running podcast. I've been doing it for almost 9 or 10 years, and so
Wow.
I'm like, what's happening with this? How come I don't have the thing is that you never know, and this is one of my stories that I tell people. You never know who's watching your videos, who's listening to your podcast, who's reading your articles or your blogs. You never know. And my story goes back to back in the days when I was working for America Online, and I was at a restaurant one day, and as you do in Los Angeles, sitting a couple tables over was Lily Tomlin and her partner at the time, Jane Wagner. And folks who don't know, Jane Wagner is a brilliant writer. She wrote so much of Lily's content, and Lily performed it. But they're a magical couple. And the person that I was with was like, you need to go over and say hello. You love Lily Tomlin. Go, 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 go. And I was like, I am not going to be that person who walks up to Lily Tomlin while she's eating dinner with her partner and say, oh, I'm a great fan. And
I love you. Yeah.
but it was like, there was that pull to get up, and I said, okay, I'll walk over. I'm going to be very gracious. And I walk up, and they're eating dinner. And I was just like, hi, Lily, Jane. Hi, I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to say, I just think you're so amazing. And I appreciate the work. I really appreciate the work you've done over the years. I just thank you, as I'm walking backwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
And they put their forks down, and they look up and they go, oh, thank you. And they said, and who are you? And I don't know why I didn't just say I'm Christine, but I said, I'm Christine, but I'm also known as Beatbox Betty.
Oh my gosh.
And they looked at each other, and they looked at me, and they said, no way. And I said, what? And I thought I was being punked. I thought, like, are these going to be cruel? Are these going to be cruel
Right.
women? Are they going to
Oh
make
my
me feel bad?
gosh.
And they said, I think it was Jane who said to Lily, oh my gosh, it's Beatbox Betty. And I was
They
like,
knew
I was
who
so
you were.
my brain was completely confused.
Oh my
Because I was
gosh.
like, what are they talking about? And then Lily says, we read your column all the time on America Online, and we think you're so funny.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's amazing.
the moral of the story is, you never know who's absorbing your content, who's reading your columns, your blogs, your posts, who's watching your videos, and maybe they don't comment or like it, but they are seeing it. So what I do with my clients, especially those that have that little imposter syndrome thing, or they just feel they doubt their worth, I'll say, imagine the person that you really admire. And it doesn't have to be an actor or anything
Sure.
like that. It could be Deepak Chopra, or I don't know, whoever you really admire, and they could be living or dead. Doesn't matter. Okay. But
Yeah.
imagine them watching your videos or listening to your podcast or reading your book. Imagine them. And when you do, you'll find that the content that you start creating, you level up. You're not just throwing it out there just to throw it out there. You're taking time. You're making sure that it's as good as possible. Not perfect, but you level up.
Yeah.
It makes you do better because you're also thinking that person might be seeing your content. So
I love
that's what I say, because I say you never know. You never know.
You truly don't. And radio is a really good way to practice that because,
Yes, ma'am.
YouTube, you can see the views, you can see the subscribers.
Yes.
And podcasts, even, you've got your numbers, your listens, your downloads, and what countries and demographics and things like that. And when you're doing radio, right then and there, you ain't got none of that. So,
No.
yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. And gosh, being able to just even step in front of the microphone and start the podcast or do the thing, and then even get to the point where you can start thinking like that, like you mentioned, and being able to level up. I mean, that's gold right there.
Well,
That's gold.
and a lot of times people think it's too hard. Before I wrote my very first book, I thought it was going to be too hard. That's why I didn't do it. And for years, I would dreamt of writing a book, but I thought it was going to be too hard. And then I learned a way to do it that it wasn't hard. And I had success with that. And then so I did another one and then another one. It's like Doritos. You can't just have one. You need to write, I'm thinking already about my next book. I'm like, what else am I going to create? So, and for those people who are like, oh, I would like to create a podcast, but it's going to be too hard. It's not. Work with a coach like myself or a mentor, somebody that's done it so they can save you the time, energy, money, frustration. And my style is simple, easy, and fun, right? So I show people how to, all the stuff, right? The title of the show is really important. The cover art, that image is what is going to draw people in, that and the title. So before you even hit record, you want to take time to think about those things. Then there's some legal stuff that you want to think about, but just going through it step by step, I've taken a good 30 to 50 people. I can't even remember how many people. I've walked them through the process of creating their podcast. And some go with it and they're super successful. And I've got a 76-year-old who's interviewed Pat Benatar and all these different celebrities. She's amazing. And then there's some who only do a couple episodes, and because they haven't become a millionaire, they're like, I've done 7 episodes and I'm done because I don't get a good return off of this. And I'm like, no, you got to keep at it. Don't give up. You got to keep at it.
If you're becoming a podcaster to become a millionaire, we need to have another discussion.
Yeah.
How do you encourage your clients to stay consistent with podcasting?
Usually I'll invite them to come into my mastermind, which we meet every other week, because then there's an accountability factor, because I check in on them and all the members of the mastermind. I'm like, so what do you have going? What's going on? This week, what are your goals in the next 2 weeks to get accomplished? And if they're stuck, I'll work with them. It's group coaching, but it's a small group, so they get a lot of attention that way. And then others, I'm like, there's a couple ways that they can work with me where every single week we have a 2-hour session. That's a lot of time, but it keeps them on track. So it's a really great way for them to keep growing, because it's not just about the podcast, or it's not just about the book. It's about your brand, right? And it's about creating your persona, who you are, and communicating that. You could be the best thing since sliced bread, but if you don't know how to communicate your message properly, it's going to be confusing to people, and they're not going to know what the hell you do. They're going to go, huh? She looks cool, but I don't know what it is that she does.
What is she doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had a issue with that. Probably still am. But I mean, what advice would you have for someone that is struggling to communicate their message, what they're doing in their content and in their marketing?
It's important because we live in a silo as entrepreneurs and coaches. We live in this bubble where we have blinders on and we only see a certain field, right? We only see so much. And as we know, there's a lot more that's outside of that. So I highly recommend that you get another person, and if possible, somebody that is experienced in these things, in branding and messaging and all that good stuff. But you need to have another person to look from the outside in, because you're very focused and you think that your posts and your videos are communicating a message that you already know. But remember, you already know what you know. Right. The audience doesn't know that yet. So just getting those simple tips. A lot of times we start, like with the people that I work with, we start at the very, very basic. We start with the brand. I create a media kit for them, and that media kit is a great blueprint for people to say, this is who I am. So it's like if you're at a cocktail party, the media kit is what you're going to be referring to. That media kid is going to say, this is what I am, this is who I serve, and these are the results that people get when they work with me or they're in my world. This is what can happen, right?
Yeah.
And those points, that's really important to know that, like in your sleep. You need to know that and be positive about that. So that's how I like to do it. And I welcome anybody who's like, if you're listening to the show and you're inspired and you're like, oh, I think I want to start this, or I think I just need maybe some help. Please come to my website. There's places all over my website where you can book a free discovery call strategy session with me. And we have 30 minutes together. And you know what? We've had 35 minutes together with Nell on this podcast, and we got a lot covered. So in 30 minutes, I can actually break down for you what I see as an outsider, if your message is clear, and then possible steps that you can take to improve that.
I love that. Yes. And also, Christine is offering a free gift to listeners and viewers as well. So we'll be sure to mention that here coming up shortly. But I do have a little bit of a fun game if you're interested.
Sure.
Just a little lightning round. Just a couple of questions to kind of, we're not going to think about them too much. It's just going to be very like what comes to the top of your head and how to answer. And this should be fun. So, all right, Christine, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's do this. What's one, quote, expert, unquote, myth you wish would disappear forever?
Say that again. What's one
expert myth you wish would disappear forever?
Oh. Because I see this a lot. That it's that comparison model. That thing of, oh, they're more successful than I could ever be. It's unattainable. That type of thing. I hate that. I don't like. There's a guru. That person is successful, so I need to do things like they are doing them. Don't do that.
I hate the term guru.
I know.
Can we just make that go away too?
Yes.
All right. Number 2, fill in the blank. The number one key to standing out online is
authenticity.
Yes. I was hoping you'd say that.
Authenticity.
All right. Last one. What's your go-to song or mantra when you're feeling like you need a boost of confidence?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. Let me think about that. My go-to song or mantra. It's so funny. Okay, so when I was in high school, I remember I think she was my history teacher. Not even high school, maybe junior high. And this was about, because in junior high you're feeling so awkward. It was the worst. I had acne. I didn't like being a kid. I was just like, this sucks, right? You're going from being a child into a teenager, and all the weirdness, and the conversation had gone up something about. What would other people think? You're worried about what other people think, whatever. And this teacher said, she says, I'm going to tell you something that you can take for the rest of your life. You can take it into your relation. You can take it into your business, whatever you want to do in life. And she said, the masses are asses. And, it's a little critical, right? But it's also really true.
It's so great.
Right? Like, if you're worried about what a bunch of people think, then you're not going to do anything. And the masses are asses. It was just a cute little way to go, don't worry about it.
I mean, it's so memorable.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you forget that? That's
well, and I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, she said ass.
She said ass. Oh my goodness. Wow. That is really cool. I love that. I love that so much. I may steal that from you.
You're just more than welcome to.
Christine, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm really glad that we were able to connect today.
Same
but
here.
Tell people where they can find you, how can they connect with you and work with you? Absolutely.
It's very simple. I mean, they can go through my name, ChristineBlosdale.com, but a lot of people don't know how to spell Blosdale. So another way, and probably an easier way, is just expertauthoritycoach.com. That's expertauthoritycoach.com. That's what I do. That's who I am. And on that website, again, you can book a strategy call or discovery call, whatever you would like to call it. And if you want to check out your expert authorityness, right, where you stand, it doesn't matter if you're, a coach, a consultant, an entrepreneur, solopreneur, if you're an author, it doesn't matter. You can take my quiz, and it's 10 questions that you should be asking yourself no matter what business you have, no matter where you are in that. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or if you've just started it. And that's at expertauthorityquiz.com. And
Perfect.
you can take that quiz, and it's really I'm very proud of the quiz because they're questions that everybody should be asking themselves, and it's just done in a simple, fun, and easy way.
Yes, that's beautiful. And that is actually the gift that we are going to include in the show notes today. So
Beautiful.
the link for that form will be there, as well as everywhere else that Christine happened to mention that you can find her in the show notes and the YouTube description if you are watching on YouTube. So, Christine, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciated this conversation.
You,
I know so
darling.
many
Thank
people
you.
did too.
I really appreciate the work that you do, and I think that you're in a place too with all of the experience and the things that you're growing with, that you're doing with radio and podcasting and YouTube. It's just the beginning. So keep at it. And if there's anything that I can do, to help you along the way, please let me know. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to. But you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Christine. Those words mean a lot, especially today. I appreciate that.
No worries.
So I may take you up on that offer one of these days.
Absolutely. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform, don't forget to leave us a review. That is how we grow here at the What the Nell podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like this video. More importantly, share this video with a friend, because undoubtedly you know someone that can use this message too. So thank you so much. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.